Ave Maria, gratia plena, Dominus tecum.
Hi, welcome back to the Red Text Podcast, a crossroads of the holy and heretical. My name is Voga, and I am Voga Illumiscente on Instagram.
And my name is Ry. You may formerly know me as Ryan, and you can find me at the Mestizo Mystic on Instagram or just at Mestizo Mystic on Twitter. And y'all may be curious that your hosts are now going by different names, and that's actually going to be the topic of tonight's episode. And I'm really excited to explore this with Voga, who y'all may formerly know as Fonzie, and myself, who you all formerly knew as Ryan. And one thing I'm excited to talk about is how even those new chosen names of ours may continue to change because identity
Yeah.
is ever shifting and ever evolving. And as we're growing and meeting new people and meeting the newer versions of ourselves, not to sound cliche or cheesy, but it's true, that those chosen names are going to continue to potentially change as well.
Oh, absolutely. I mean, the fact that it was so easy for me to shift. Well, not easy. That's not true. But like, it was possible for me to shift into like this identity goes to show that this is probably not permanent.
Hmm.
This is probably going to shift again. So but yeah, there's this there we wanted to talk about the idea of what names mean to us personally as queer folks, and also just generally speaking why names are important, because something that we tend to kind of take for granted, what we usually kind of tend to take for granted is what things are called, and
Hmm.
why those things are called those things, and why it's important. But you know what, Ryan, because we're still kicking off technically season 2, I want to recap everyone, because this is the first time that we've actually sat down and recorded season 2, like how we usually, like our usual structure. Can we just do a really quick recap of the last couple of months since we've taken a break from recording? Like, it's been really fun. Like, for
Hmm.
example, you and I have been in the same city twice in the last 3 months, which is fucking wild. That is
Fucking wild.
so cool. I finally got to meet your partner, which was so fun. But Ryan, the last 2.5 months, how have you been? How are things been going for you?
Pretty good. I mean, there's definitely been life circumstances that have been stressful, but on the most part, like, I finished my first semester of graduate school training to be a therapist, and that is just such a huge accomplishment. Like, I never saw myself going back to graduate school or going back to school for like a master's degree, let alone training to be a therapist. And to have already finished my first semester is just, even if I were to drop out of school, I still can say like I finished a semester of grad school, and like that in and of itself is still an accomplishment.
I am so
Um,
proud of you. I am so proud of you.
Thank you. It's funny because this last semester of grad school actually really contributed to my identity development as a person, as a queer individual, being able to claim the title of being trans, and is what helped me navigate into exploring the new use of my name of going by Ry instead of Ryan. But before I dive more into that, as recent months have gone, I've been re-engaging more with my spiritual practice, trying to spend more time at my altars. As you listeners know, Voga and I had a pretty rough first half of 2022 where we both were just going through a lot of personal shit, which affected how much we were engaging or not engaging with our spiritual practices. So at least on my end, it feels nice to start dipping my toes back in with my guides, with my ancestors, and re-engaging with them and doing more magic. I feel like I've done more spell work and even just prayer work in general in the last month than I have like the last several months,
Mm-hmm.
so that's been really great. And I'm living with my partner now, which comes with its own challenges, but it's also very, very beautiful, very exciting. And then yeah, aside from that, the stressful part that I was subsiding from was just that, like, we have been struggling to find a roommate lately, because someone moved out of our house mid-December, and we haven't found someone yet, so we had to pay extra rent in December and this month, and we still haven't found someone to move in yet. So I know it'll all work out in the end, and I'm continuing to have faith. But it's just when you're in those situations, it can be be a bit hard to bear with. So and that on top of work and working in corporate, it's just like mundane shit. But other than that, I've been doing pretty well. I have good health. I haven't lost any loved ones recently with the rapid spread of this new Omicron COVID variant, and I have a roof over my head. Luckily, my neighborhood hasn't been affected by these crazy storms raging through California and particularly the Bay Area. So I have a lot to be thankful and grateful for. A lot to complain about too, but I'm trying to focus on the positive. And yeah, how have you been these last couple of months? I miss you, and I miss us spending time in person together, but here we are.
I know. That was such a blast. I mean, I posted pretty, pretty a lot while I was in San Francisco. So, I mean, that was such a fun trip. And it's so funny. I did nothing that anyone who would be going to San Francisco would do in San Francisco. Like, literally all we did was like hang out. We went to lunch, we hung out in my hotel room, we drank, like we went to other people's places. You know what I mean? We didn't do any of like I didn't do any of like the touristy things. Like one day me and Austin were just like walking around and like aimlessly walking around and getting to know each other. You know what I mean? It was just such a wonderful trip. And it I don't know, there was like something that just sparked some life into me. It was just so enlightening, that trip. I got to meet so many of my online friends there. Shane, Keanu, Johnny. I met so many of you, and I was so stoked to meet all of you. You and I actually got tattoos. I forgot about that. We got tattoos.
Oh my
Um
god, that's
we
right.
got tattoos on the same.
Oh, hold on. I'll show for our patrons who get video content of ours. I got this scythe with a little red circle, and this was actually a skin sacrifice to Santa Muerte for a petition she filled. Which, for all my devotees that may be listening, do not fucking get a tattoo for Santísima Muerte unless you are petitioning for something major, because you only get, as I was taught by my mentor, you only get one shot. And the loophole is that you get different symbols of hers as tattoos for different petitions, or you can just get her and all her symbols at once for like one big ask. But I was taught that once you ask it and you get it and you get that skin sacrifice, that's it. So save it for really important shit. And so that's
The
why
big shit.
I only told her I was going to get a scythe, because it was still a big ask, but not so big that I would get all of Santa Muerte tattooed on me. But this is my first ever like skin sacrifice to a spirit, aside from like my forearm one, which was for like my ancestors. But that wasn't a petition. That was just like in honor of them. So, but yeah, we got that together.
Yeah, I got a really pretty, oh, I can't really see it, a little rose, which has a lot of over the last year and a half has grown to be one, my favorite plant ally, and two, obviously the association with Our Lady of Sorrows and any aspect of Mary, and also it's such a goth thing to have on you as a rose. It's so like it's so goth, it reminds me of the Violator. You probably have no idea what I'm talking about. The Violator album cover, the Depeche Mode. Anyways, so yeah, I got a little rose, but it was really fun. It was a cute thing that we got to do together, and yeah, it was just a blast. And then you came to LA for a little bit, for a couple of days, and I got to show you around a little bit. We went to a really really pretty the Miriam exhibit, the vision,
Yes.
the Miriam
At the
exhibit at the
Getty, yeah,
Getty.
that was. Oh, I wish we could have spent more time at the Getty if I wasn't leaving back to SF that day. But that was such a fun time, and the Mayan codices that they had on exhibit, that was
Yeah, that
so
was so
rad.
cool. That was so cool. I learned a lot just from that one small exhibit. That was really
Hmm.
beautiful. So yeah, I had a wonderful couple of months. The break was very much needed. I feel refreshed and I feel inspired, and I'm so stoked. Most of y'all probably seen the new artwork and the new kind of vibe that we're going for. I'm very excited for that because it's just, oh god, it makes me so excited just to see what we have in store for this season. But yeah, I was just so excited to meet you, Ryan. I was just like, I mean, Excuse me. Oh my gosh. Let's go back. Let's rewind. Let's edit that out. I was just so excited to meet you, Ry, because it's like it was just the perfect cap to the perfect season is
Hmm.
us being in the same city together and hanging out. But
And it was so special getting to record our season 2 premiere together in
yeah,
person.
that was really wonderful. That was really, really wonderful to actually have like a conversation face to
And
face.
it's gonna be funny too because we didn't go by our new names yet when we recorded that either.
Oh yeah. Oh my gosh, that didn't even occur to me. Yeah. So the new then the our new chosen names was something that happened very recently within the last like, well, for me within the last month. For you,
I
when
would
did
say
that
for me
happen?
it was around I think the last 2 months because
No,
for
it
sure.
happened when you came to LA. You told me about it when you came to LA. So it
Well,
happened
no,
when you.
when you came to San Francisco and we were getting tattoos, I had mentioned at the tattoo
Oh,
parlor.
that's right.
So I believe it was that last weekend of grad school for my last semester in December. So which was like mid December. So I'd say mid December was when I started experimenting with just going by Ryan instead of Ryan. And I know that's going to change, and I know I'm going to pick a new name at first. But like working with just an alteration of my given name is like dipping my toes in first before I go for like a completely just different name altogether.
I know. I just dove right in. Um okay, so why don't we what do you want to talk about first? Do you want to talk about our names specifically, or do you want to talk about just like names, just names in general and why names are important?
I think we should start off with what inspired and why we chose our new chosen names, because I feel like that will segue well into talking about names as an overarching subject.
I agree. Okay. That's a good idea. Why don't you go first?
Sure. As I was mentioning earlier, it was really the container of which I was held in my program at school, just to keep my identity, and personal information private. I'm not going to name my school or my professor, who I honestly would love to shout out during this episode, because it's thanks to them that I was given that container to experiment with my both gender identity and identity as a person. Every single day of the semester in their classes, and I had them for two different classes, they would always open up the class with a check-in, and during this check-in they would ask us to give our name that we're using and our pronouns that we're using that day, and the third thing would be like one word or sound or gesture to symbolize how we were feeling, but that's aside from the point right now. And it was so beautiful because from the very beginning of the semester to the end of the semester, I saw people not only experiment with going by a different chosen name, but also with their pronouns, because this container reminds y'all, like, or to remind y'all, like, going through training as a therapist isn't just being academically challenged within the institution of academia in grad school. We're also having to deal with consistent trauma and bringing up trauma from our past and navigating our entire past, present, and potential futures, and just our entire identity as a person, so we can better um, show up for clients and patients that we're going to be therapists for in the future. So like when I say I'm in grad school, don't just think it's academically challenging. Like my whole worldview is being flipped upside down right now as we speak, and that's what happened in this class. So in my last weekend of the semester, because I'm in a weekend program, um, I realized like I started going by they them only again, because throughout most of the semester I was using all pronouns they he she, and then I realized through further exploration that I feel like I was really just doing that to pacify conflict, since I have an intense fear of conflict. And I realized that I'm at least in this point right now, this can still change, is that I'm most comfortable with they them, that ambiguous mercurial energy of being non-binary or being genderqueer. And then I started to
Hmm.
realize, I love the name Ryan, I do, and part of me just wants to be like quirky and different because it's such a common name. But also, like, one of my aunts always calls me Rye or Rai, and she's like one of the only people who does that. And I've just, when I reflected on how I felt when she calls me that, it just gave me this very endearing, kind of enlightening feeling. Like it just felt like comforting, like a warm hug every time I was called that. And so my last weekend in school, those last 3 days of the semester, I decided to go by Ryan instead of Ryan. And being called, not only having a container in which that's respected right off the bat, but experiencing being called Ryan instead of Ryan by my peers and by my professors was just so empowering and
Hmm.
comforting. And just hearing that, like, again, hearing that my name be called Ryan instead of Ryan, like, it gave me that same endearing, comforting feeling. And I realized not only am I, in a sense, reclaiming my power of getting to choose what I want to be called, but I'm having it respected, and it just felt nice. That's all I can really say. I can't describe an experience that I have internally that's subjectively or subjectively my own, you know, just how it's hard to explain spiritual experiences to someone because like if you can't explain something that's so personal to you that only you've been through. So anyways, that's my journey with my name change, and like I wanted to open up to our listeners is that that may change in the future as well. This is just part of a transition, or what's called a social transition for me. Is the evolution of the name that I'm going by. And I love the name Ryan because it means king or little king. And as a Leo, I just feel like that's so fitting. And at the same time, as we'll go out throughout this episode to say, like names have power. And, but in a sense, we're given our name. And so while that may be great for our parents who chose that name, that doesn't really leave us much autonomy. So to feel the autonomy that came with getting to go by Ryan instead of Ryan just still felt so powerful. And that's my journey so far with choosing to go by that. And it's mainly what I'm introducing myself to new people as. My family, I haven't so much had the confidence to bring that up with them. But going forward, when I make new friends or a new environment, like I'm gonna do my best to introduce myself as Rye instead of Ryan, and to go out of that container of school and my cohort and peers and continue to bring that empowering sense of choosing my name into the real world.
Yeah. I love that because it really does, like that feeling you were talking about, especially what I experienced within the last couple of weeks, was it just feels like a big old hug. Like you feel like you're hugging yourself because it feels it's so validating for you to choose a name and then to tell people about the name and then for them to use it. It
Mm-hmm.
just it the first time I heard someone like refer to me as Voga was like, it was so empowering. It gave me like, it just gave me so, it made me so happy. It brought me so much joy. My story is a little bit different in regards to why I decided to choose a name, but also the same. It has a lot to do with just confirming myself, and validating myself, because I expressed it to Ry first. Ry was the first one I actually reached out to in regards to how I was feeling, because I was like, I think my first message to you was like, can I pick your therapist in training brain for a second? Because I thought like, okay, I don't have the resources or the knowledge to understand what's going on in my brain right now. Maybe Rye does. So like I use my resources. My friend is a therapist in training. So it's like, of course, I'm going to utilize my resources, right? So without having to pay a copay, thank you very much for that. I appreciate it. I told them I'm going through this kind of disassociation from my name. Like I had this, like there's this complex that I'm starting to develop in my brain within the last, it happened like at the tail end of last year, like the last 6 months of last year, where I felt like my given name, and mind you, Fonzie is a nickname, but it was a nickname given to me by my parents. So I've been called Fonzie since I was a little kid, since I was a baby. And the name, for some reason, when spoken by my newer friends, like my queer friends and my occult friends, for some reason, it just didn't feel right. It just didn't match. It didn't feel like they were talking to me. Like I started to feel really disconnected from the name when like Francisco would start talking to me, or if like my queer friends here would start, like my group would talk to me, or like the blasphemy people would talk to me. Like it just, I felt like I was really disconnected from the name. And I started to go through this thing that I thought was an identity crisis, which maybe it is, maybe it was.
Identity exploration.
Yeah, but at the time it felt like a crisis because I was just
Yeah,
it,
I think it's
it
one and the same.
yeah, I think it's kind of synonymous with each other, like when you're exploring, but also kind of feels like a crisis at the same time, because you don't,
Who am I?
because at the time I was just like, I already figured out who the hell I am. Like why am I going through this again?
Mm,
You
mm-hmm.
know, just like I know who I am. Like what does my name have to do with it? And I realized that my name had a lot to do with it. And the reason why is because my name has been so like my name has been so like just attached with my past, and with the relationships and the life that I'm making now is just so drastically different from what I've had before. um like I was going into this year the happiest I've ever been. It's like I've never felt this way before. I felt really complete. I feel really safe, and I feel like there's a lot of support around me. But for some reason, I think my given name is attached to a lot of the parts that I healed from. So a lot of the trauma and a lot of the tears and the heartbreak, my name was associated. A lot of the parts that I hated about myself was attached to that name. I'm also going to go ahead and say that my name is not a dead name. My given name is not a dead name. I still go by that name, and I will choose to still go by that name by the friends that I've had for decades. They still call me Fonzie, and my family, they still call me Fonzie because that name is associated with that part of my life.
Mm.
But my given name is not associated with that part of my life. Or I'm sorry, my chosen name, Voga, is not associated with that part of my life. And I want to keep it that way because I do feel like it's separate. I do feel like it's different. If the friends that I've had for decades, my ride or dies, call me Voga, it wouldn't make any sense. It doesn't make sense to me. And I tried it and it doesn't work. So it's interesting because I was talking to Francisco about the same thing, and Francisco was like, yeah, it's because you're a liminal being, so you get to choose which side of the line you get to be on.
That part.
And I was like, thank you very much, I appreciate that. And what's really, really interesting is when I opened my mouth and I reached out to Ry, Francisco, and Flo, the trans folk witch on Instagram, and Austin, those were the ones. You were first though.
I'm so honored.
It was on the winter solstice, which
Oh, wow.
didn't even fucking occur to me. It was actually Francisco who was like, remember tonight was the winter solstice, right? And I was like, I did, but I didn't connect the dots, So I was telling people, I was like, I don't know why it's happening to me today, like why I want to do this today, why I want to talk about this today. And Francisco was like, it's the winter fucking solstice. It's like the most liminal time of the year. And you're talking about liminality, and you're talking about you being a liminal being and wanting to identify as two identities. Of course, you get to choose what people call you because what you call you has power.
Mm-hmm.
And I was like, I was just like floored. I was like, you literally this is the reason why you talk to your friends when you're going through something like this, because the perspective is really important. Perspective is so fucking important, because when people start feeding me these things, I was just like, yeah, this is the reason why. The name is not a random name. The name is actually a family name. It was a name that belonged to one of my ancestors. I'm not going to go into who and what that name means because that's personal to me. But now I also, the reason why I'm so like attached to my name now is because my name that I go by is ancestral, but also my handle is also ancestral because it's named after my great great grandfather. So it's just like a big part of me is like, your spiritual court is like doing this to you, like they're telling you need to pay attention, like I think they're feeding me these things, they're feeding me the things that I'm supposed to be doing. This is my transitional period of like finding my new identity. That sounds really, all of what I just said sounds really convoluted, I know, and that could be extremely confusing, and it's really difficult to express the feelings that I had and currently having. You have to experience what I'm talking about to actually know what I'm talking about. But yeah, that's kind of like the nutshell. I just didn't identify with the name depending on who I was talking to. Like, it's very specific to the person I'm talking to. So I decided to provide my new given name, or my new chosen name, to the folks who I want to address me by that name. It's a very interesting thing. It's a very interesting dynamic, because sometimes I do feel like I have to switch sometimes, like when I'm sitting with my family at dinner, like they're addressing me a certain way and I also act a certain way. It's not something like I'm not code switching or anything, but I do act a certain way with the people I've known for a long time, and I do act a certain way with the people that I've known within the last couple of years. It's different. And
Yeah.
it just plays into that liminality where I'm constantly a liminal person, and I get to kind of tightrope walk depending on how I feel that day.
Yeah, and like you said, it's not code switching, but it's what I learned in school is like our persona, right? It's like the mask we wear, but not in a superficial sense. How do I put this in a better example? Like for me, I am not the me that I am when I'm at school with my other peers who are therapists in training, that I am with my partner or with my family or with you, Voga. Like, do I take the skills I learn in school and incorporate that into my interpersonal relationships? Yes, but
Hmm.
I am not the same being that I am in that classroom setting with my peers, or even just when I'm out in a different setting with those same peers, when I am with just you and other queer witch friends, or when I'm with my partner, or when I'm with my family. So again, it's not this code switching. It's the way we're expressing, kind of how we choose how we want to express our gender through our chosen names, and the way we embody ourselves around certain individuals and groups of people is how we express ourselves, our being. We as beings, as souls, as spirits, are multifaceted, and those facets show up in different ways throughout different relationships.
Hmm. Hmm. And I would also like to, um, I think, provide a little bit of advice, or just give a little bit of advice for folks who might be have friends or loved ones who might be experiencing the things that Ryan are experiencing. These things could change day by day. So if you're not sure, it's very okay to ask, what would you like to be called today? Or who, what is the name that you're identifying with today? What are the pronouns you would like to identify today? If that's something that you've talked about before, it's really important as being allies to your queer friends, is to see
Hmm.
how how they're walking the earth that day. It's really affirming to them to be seen that way, to know that things shift all the time, and to be seen that way and to be affirmed that way is something that needs to be talked about more. It needs to be treated. I think it also should be treated as normal, as a normal thing. That's nothing that should be like the center of conversation. It should be talked about and it should be addressed, but also at the same time, it should just be seen as like a default, like how
Right.
like being straight is a default, right? It should just be treated as if it's normal life. It's like, okay, so Voga's going by she today, right? Great, so that's what we're going to go by.
Hmm.
Even though that I literally, I really, as of right now at this moment, which is January 11th 2022, 2023 actually,
8:04
um
p.m.
8:04 p.m. I don't care. You can, if you address me as Voga and then all three of my preferred pronouns in the same sentence, you can literally ask me to marry you, and I'll probably say yes, because I think that's so hot. Oh God, that's so hot. I love that. But yeah, the way someone identifies and the way the someone wants to be addressed is ever shifting, and it's really important for your your people, the people that you have around you, to understand that it's important for them to also shift with you. Um,
Hmm. Hmm. And I just want to add on to that by asking, like you mentioned, by being an ally or just being a great queer friend, and asking what pronouns you'd like to use today or what name you'd like to go by today. It takes the onus off that other person to feel like
mhm.
not everyone has the confidence. Like I don't. Like I don't always have the confidence to bring up, oh hey, just to let you know I'm going by these pronouns today, or I'm choosing this name today. Like if someone asks me, it relieves such a heavy weight off my shoulders and gives me the gateway to access and then tell them what I'd like, versus me just being passive. Because one thing I struggle with is fear of conflict, and so for me, I would love to be asked that question of what pronouns or name I'm using, because then I'll gladly disclose that. Otherwise, I'm kind of just going to go with the flow, even if it's at my own discomfort. So I just want to say, like, asking people is whether as an ally or just as a friend is fantastic.
I think that's fantastic too. But also at the same time, when we turn it on its head, well, I want to also address the queer folks who are experiencing this. I think it's also important for us to also address that anxiety that we have about confronting those issues that make us feel uncomfortable, because the more that we actually kind of talk about it and the more we address those issues, the more comfortable we get. So, because I'm also like one of those people who believes that I'm not responsible for someone else's discomfort. You know what I mean? I feel like if I'm uncomfortable, I'm responsible for making myself not feel uncomfortable anymore.
Hmm.
Um, unless someone is actually projecting and actually going out of their way to make me feel uncomfortable, that's different. But like when if I'm just in a normal situation where if the people around you are kind of unaware of what's happening, like try to work on you know putting that information out there so that people are aware. And if people go out of the way to ignore it, then we have a problem, right? Because now that they're
Right.
aware, like, what are you doing? I told you what made me feel uncomfortable. Now you're actually going out of your way to make me feel uncomfortable,
Hmm.
so it kind of goes both ways at the same time. But yeah, I think where the privilege stands is with our allies. They need to understand where we stand because we're always the ones who have to keep quiet. So
Right.
I think it's important for the folks that we have around us to know what is important to us and to address us that way, and
Hmm.
to ask those important questions, because even those questions are really affirming to us. Just like it makes us aware that you're paying attention and that you're being considerate.
Hmm. Hmm. How would you feel about segueing into kind of like the magical purposes and power within a name?
Let's do it. I think that's a really important conversation.
The first thing that came to mind for me, and I'm not a theologian, I'm not a historian, I'm only going to speak to the extent of the knowledge that I do have, is, for example, in Catholicism, a folk tradition, because I only recently learned it's a folk tradition, I thought it was actually like institutional, but a very, very widespread common folk tradition is when you are confirmed Catholic, you choose
Mm-hmm.
a confirmation name, generally that of a saint. And my church, I was so young, I don't remember, and I don't feel like they gave me really a choice. Like I think they just looked at the saints that were related to the day that I was born, like those feast days of saints, and chose one for me because I don't remember choosing mine. But like for example, my confirmation saint name is Apollo. I think it's Apollinaris or something like that. And I don't really resonate with that saint. I did my research. I looked into them, and I didn't really feel any connection there. And I feel like it's because I didn't really have enough education. I wasn't old enough to really know what that meant to choose a confirmation saint.
Mm-hmm.
Since we're a full Catholic podcast, I wanted to point out that full Catholic tradition that's very widespread and common,
Yeah.
and usually just seen as Catholicism, is choosing a confirmation saint name. And when you choose that confirmation saint, they're kind of seen as like your patron saint and kind of the one that like you turn to, in a sense. You can have other patron saints, of course, but generally you have like one main patron saint. um, but yeah, I think for me they just looked at saints related to the feast day of my birthday and just ran with it. But do you have, because I know you weren't raised Catholic, but do you have the Protestants where you were raised, did they have like kind of saint names like that in any aspect?
No, because they do not recognize the saints in
Right.
yeah, they don't recognize the saints. They understand that saints exist, but or probably even not. But no, they do not recognize the saints. In a Protestant house, it is a Jesus-centered house. Everything is Jesus, Jesus this, Jesus that, or God. So no, saint confirmation names, all of those, like I mean we're baptized, but we don't go through confirmation, we don't go through communion, we don't go through any of that stuff. So like if you I don't know if you folks have ever walked into a Christian service with a pastor and everything. It's someone preaching and everyone just standing in the pew, in the just praying and like speaking in tongues, and it's a lot of that stuff. um but no, we never really had things like that. That was never really a part of my life. I wish it was, because that sounds so cunt. um I would have been like going into like the research and actually finding like a saint that I would actually want to call myself would be so much fun. Because I've always thought, like, okay, so when I was growing up, when I was in college, I had a drag mother, and my drag mother's name was Saint Peter Deville, and I thought that was so fucking cool, because her name was Peter, like in real life. So she called her her drag persona was Saint Peter Deville, and I thought that was just so. Also, I thought that was also a really powerful name.
Hmm.
Um, but yeah, we never had to really have. We never really dealt with it, or we were never exposed to anything like that. We weren't exposed to any sort of like traditional practices or things like that. I wish I was. Um, but in regards to like taking names, like a whole bunch of like Protestant Christians are named after a lot of, like, there's like a lot of Isaiahs in Filipino culture. There's a lot of like I think my dad's middle name is Augustine.
Mm.
Yeah.
A lot of Josephs.
Yeah, a lot of Josephs. My mother is Catholic, and her confirmation name I think is Marie, which a lot of women are. Like, how many Filipino women do you know their middle name is Marie? Everyone. Um, but
Or
yeah,
Grace.
or right. But also in the whole aspect of like just folklore and like, you know, Catholic or Christian folklore is like the idea that Adam was given the job of naming everything, right? Of naming when things were being made. They were like, I want you to name everything. That's a cow, that's a dog, that's a whatever, right? That's a tree, that's a whatever. So putting name, there was this interesting, when I started talking to my friends about my chosen name, Austin posted a really fantastic post on Instagram. um the caption was beautiful. um and they brought up the quote from Romeo and Juliet, what's in a name, right? What's in a name? And that stanza, or is that what it's called in poetry, that part in the poem is talking about how regardless of whatever something is called, it's the same thing. Like it is what it is, regardless of what it's called, right? So I think they were talking about in that stanza, it's like, what's in a name? In a rose would smell just as sweet, or something like that, right? So if
Mm-hmm.
if a rose was called if a rose was called a cup, it would still smell like a rose, right? It would, like, there's no value, or there's no weight in the name. So we turn that around in regards to how we practice, how we see things, and how the something being called something has its power. It has um its meaning. Like, its meaning is attached to its name, and its name is attached to its meaning, which is a very strange, abstract thing to think about, but like in my head it makes sense. Like, you know, when you see someone on the street and like they say that my name is John, and they'd be like, yeah, you look like a John. Like,
Mm-hmm.
your face is a John, right? Like their name matches their face. A rose matches a rose, and a like I don't know, a cup matches a cup. And it's interesting too, because like when you think of like what things are called in different languages, like a baso is a baso, right? Or plato is a plato, or whatever.
Mm-hmm.
So it's interesting to think about it that way, how if you change the name, the meaning does change. Like the whole thing about like, you can call wherever you want, but it is going to be the same. It's like, no, it's not. If you're going to call a rose a cup, then the cup is a cup now, right? If you're going to call me Fonzie because you forgot what my name was, you're referring to me as Fonzie. And if you call Ryan because you decided to call them Ryan, they're Ryan. That's why it needs to shift. You claim that power. And it's kind of the same thing about how, like, okay, so you get us as spiritual practitioners, we get to assign things, we get to give things its power. We get to claim the power that we get to that is the power that we have as spiritual, as witches, as whatever you identify as, right? We claim that power, we claim that magic. And the name is important because
Mm-hmm.
it is what it is. It is what it is, and it is what that spirit calls itself.
Mm-hmm.
That
Mm-hmm.
spirit of the rose calls itself a rose, right?
Right. I mean, even think of it in the terms of like signatures, right? Signatures are, in a sense, your own personal sigil because almost everyone's signature is unique to themselves. Or like the image that was just coming to my mind is like the folklore of when you're signing your name in the Black Book of the Devil to become a witch or to make a contract or sell your soul. The thing that holds that power is when you're selling, at least as I understand it, is when you're signing your name in that book and it's your name that you're giving them.
Mm-hmm.
So just the power, the weight that one's name holds, because that's a part of yourself, whether that's the chosen name that you're going by or the name that you were given at birth. Either way, it's powerful. And I'm curious what you think of this, Voga. Like, when we work with petition papers, for example, I don't know if you often use them as to create a tag lock for a person, but uh, like, would you say that the given name of a person would be preferable to use for a petition paper versus a chosen name? Do you think it's equal, or that one's less powerful than the other, or that it just won't work at all if it's not the correct name? Like, what's your take on that? I'm curious.
It depends on who it is. Um, oh, this might get me in trouble. If I know the given name and I want to fuck them up, I would probably use the given name. I've never really thought about that.
I've never given it too much thought either. I thought of it now, and I wanted to hear your thoughts first before I try to come up with my own.
I think the most disrespectful thing that you can ever do to somebody is to call someone by their dead name.
Mm-hmm.
So if someone fucks me over, I think I would use their dead name. Is that toxic?
I don't know. I mean, because like in the term of like energy, right? Like the given name is the name that you were given at birth, that you had no
Yeah.
choice. So it's kind of like the assigned name, whereas your chosen name is like, again, your chosen name. So I'm trying to consider, like, do
I
they
take
hold equal weight, or is
no,
the
no.
given name the necessary one to use when it comes to magic?
No, 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 no. I take it back. I don't think so. I don't think they hold extra weight. I think when a name dies, it dies. It's dead,
Mm,
because that doesn't belong to me. That belongs to whoever that name belonged to. So if that person said, let's say John, okay, John changed their has chosen a name and their name is now Jack, okay? And they have claimed spiritually and physically that that name is dead. That name is dead. It's not up to me to decide whether that name is still valid or not. So
yeah,
regardless of whether I like them or not, even though I would want to disrespect them in the most disgusting way and call them by their given name, their dead name, it's not going to hold any value. It's not going to hold up. Actually, it's not going to hold any value at all, because I don't think the spirits even recognize that name anymore.
interesting.
That's just my personal opinion. I don't think it holds, because that person, like, who you attaching it to, that name is not attached to me anymore.
Right, right. I would love to ask like Austin, or someone in general, if there's any folklore or mythology to back that up, to give us like credence of like what we're sharing our own opinions on, because I don't know. I was just curious what you thought, because I guess if I was consulting with spirits, or if I was doing divination or magic of sorts, like if I knew both names, I think I would incorporate both. I'd be like, oh, this person given the name this by, if you know their parents' names, then their parents, and then that goes by, and then their given or chosen name, just so
Yeah.
it's like covering all bases. I always like to play it safe than sorry. Um, but yeah, I'm just curious about that, because I truly don't know. I was just
Yeah.
curious what you thought.
I do think there's a little bit of like, it depends. It depends on what I'm doing. It depends on who the person is. It depends
If
on.
you have a personal concern or a tag log, I think at the end of the day it doesn't matter. But I guess in the
Yeah.
context that I'm asking is if we only have their name to work with to create like a petition paper or something.
Like, for example, with that death right I was telling you about, for the folks that were murdered in the shooting in in the nightclub. You remember? So a lot of those folks have chosen names. I would never even think about ever even considering using their given names if they have a chosen name, or their dead names.
Hmm.
So it really depends. It really I don't know. I don't know. I've never really considered it, because like, I think if I was actually even doing the working and I didn't like the person and I know they have a chosen name, I would just probably automatically use their chosen name, even if I
Right.
knew their given name. Like, it's just like in my head, like, I wouldn't want to. I don't know. I don't know. I don't know. I think what you're asking is whether it matters, and I don't know. I don't know if it matters.
Hmm.
I don't know
Hmm.
if it matters which one is more powerful and which one is more. I don't know. Depending on what the working is doing, if you're doing like some sort of curse work or some sort of curse right, does their given name, like, being as disrespectful and vile as possible, is using their dead name? Maybe,
Hmm.
maybe,
Hmm.
maybe that is something that you could consider, you should consider in regards to doing that work. um I mean, referring to them, like, just in general, like, to people just for the sake of being disrespectful, I think we're better than that. But like, what you're saying, like, what you do at the privacy of your own altar is different.
Right.
You know what I mean? But I don't know. That's interesting. That's food for thought. I think that requires more perspective. Um, I think it's maybe we need another witch's perspective in regards to what name is which name would be more effective, which name is more efficacious. Like, what does
Yeah.
efficacious really mean, right, in regards to using names? Because sometimes I only have the first name, right? What if I don't know the last name? Sometimes there are a whole bunch of people that I know here online that I don't know their last name.
Hmm.
um, so, and which is good because they're doing exactly what they're supposed to do. Everyone online doesn't know what my last name is, and I've done that on purpose. um, but I don't know. That's an interesting thought. Never really thought about that.
Yeah. Are there any other aspects of in terms of magic or spirituality that you want to cover when it comes to names?
Generally speaking, I think what I wanted to get across here is how just the act of changing your name is immensely queer, and how queerness is just immensely. I mean, how witchcraft is just inherently queer. Um, so if you don't, even if you're not queer, but you want to identify by something else, something that's more powerful than your given name, then fucking do it. Like, just do it. You can call yourself whatever the fuck you want. Do whatever you want. But you'll also kind of realize, I just realized that this has been in the video the entire time, and that really bothers me.
What was that?
It's my like light that, like, it's like my desk light, and now it's just been
Oh.
dangling there the entire time, and it just bothers me then knowing that it was there the whole time. I'm sorry about that. ADHD just got the better of me. But yeah, I think names are really important. I think names are extremely powerful, and I think you should be called whatever the fuck you want to be called. I'm definitely an advocate for that now, especially when you just don't identify it. You just don't identify by it anymore. I mean, your name is so important. It's what people call you, and it's what people, it's what people refer to you as. It's like, oh yeah, so Voga did this day. Like, don't you want it to be referred? Don't you want to be referred to as something that you actually want to be referred to as?
Right.
And it doesn't have to. What if, like, you have no one to call you that name? You can call yourself that name. You can do it in the privacy of your own home. If you're not in a place that it's safe to call yourself something else, or refer to yourself as something, just say it to yourself. Call yourself that name, because if you say it is your name, it is your name.
Mm-hmm.
Also, I want to talk about, in regards to spirituality, how powerful names actually are. Let's talk about demons, because, like, when someone's going through some sort of exorcism, what's something that the demon holds to itself to not give the exorcist its power?
Right.
Its
Its
name.
name.
Right? The power of a name is so important because it gives people power. It really truly does. And once someone knows a demon's name, they'll know how to exorcise that demon.
And we ain't talking Jane Fonda, baby.
Jane Fonda.
Exercise.
Oh my god. Do you know what's so funny? The first thing that popped into my head was Mickey Avalon. Do you know who Mickey Avalon is?
No.
I'm asking the wrong person. God damn it. Okay, I'm gonna send you a link. Mickey Avalon is like this really gross rapper from like the early 2000s who came out with a song called Jane Fonda. It had a chokehold on me in high school. Anyways, like, that was like the first thing that popped in my head for some reason. I was like, what are you talking? Shut the fuck up. But yeah, that's what I'm saying. It's like the power of a name is very, very important. Spiritually, it's very important. So, like, even with me, when I'm petitioning Anthony to find something for me, that little chant that's like, Tony, Tony, look around,
Yeah.
I was like, I like the idea of calling him Tony. I think it's cute, but as much as I possibly can, I call him Anthony because that is his. I don't know if he was actually called Anthony in his real life. Maybe. Was Tony like a common nickname back then, like in the monastery? Like, were monks just calling each other
Hey
like
yo,
nicknames?
Tony.
Hey, what's up, Tony? You know what I mean? Like, is that like a thing? I was like, I didn't want to like start harping on like um Italian stereotypes, but like, I watch a lot of Jersey Shore, you guys, so I know the Italian stereotypes. But you know what I mean? Like, so I try to address like addressing Michael as Mike, like I think is like kind of like I think that's one of the reasons why he doesn't like me very much, is because I don't have the, I was like, Mike, what's going on, you know what I mean, like talk to him like he's a friend of mine when he's not.
Right.
So it's kind of the thing, I think. But Tony, I think Anthony has kind of like more of a casual kind of like friendly vibe to him, so I think he also kind of is okay with it. But anyways, he's come through for me a lot, so I guess he's okay with it. But anyways, and is there anything else you want to talk about in regards to names?
Just like just a quirky little thing. Have you seen the animated film not Studio Ghibli, hello, Spirited Away?
That is Studio Ghibli, isn't it?
It is. I was about to say the movie's called Studio Ghibli instead of the Studio Ghibli movie Spirited Away.
Oh, yes, I have.
I just can't stop thinking about how the witch, like God, I'm forgetting all the characters' names, but like the main character, like how she was under her control because she took her name, like the witch, like took the girl's name,
and then
or
she
like
started oh my
her name,
God.
or like how like Haku like couldn't be free until they helped Haku remember his name, so he went from being like a boy back into a dragon, or vice versa, whatever.
Or when he was like talking, see, he was the spirit of the river, right?
Yes.
Like he was the spirit of the river, and that's how he remembered he was the spirit of the river. Oh my God. Yeah. Oh, what a great reference. You're right. That's exactly right. And you're right. The I forgot her name too. The main character, she started to forget her name because her name wasn't being used, right? Because she didn't want to be, they told her not to be referred to her name, because if the witch knew her name, she can use that against her.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, that's a really good point. First of all, can we just talk about that movie is fucking
fantastic.
incredible.
I think that was my first Studio Ghibli movie.
It was mine too. And it is a masterpiece. It is a work of art from the minute you start watching it all the way to the end. It is if no one has watched that movie, if there's one Studio Ghibli movie that you should see, it's that movie. It's absolutely incredible. I think it is actually like the masterpiece of when it comes to that animated to like any sort of animation movie. I think it's the pedestal.
That and Princess Mononoke are like my top 2 Studio Ghibli films for sure. You would love it. It's fantastic.
I remember that I saw Kiki when I was younger, like when I was like a child or like a teenager.
I never finished it. I actually really couldn't get into it. I need to sit down and try again.
Kiki, and then Totoro I never seen.
Oh God, how could I forget Totoro? That's top 3. Yeah, Totoro, Spirited Away, and Princess Mononoke. But Howl's Moving Castle's up there too.
Oh, Howl's Moving. Oh yeah. Have you ever seen Fern? Okay, now we're going into something else. Maybe we should save this for the post show. But yeah, that was a great point. That was a really cool. Cool. I didn't even think about that. That's wonderful. I'm pretty sure there are a whole bunch of other references that we can, in regards to someone's name. Like names are important. But yeah, cool. Anything else, Ry?
Not at the moment, but that's the way my brain works. I'll say I'm not thinking of anything, and then when I'm lying awake randomly at 3 a.m., I'm going to think of all these topics I could have brought up in this episode.
I know it happens all the time, but like I said, it feeds into another episode, I'm sure. So we can always bring it up later. Well, welcome back, Ry. I'm so happy to be back and recording with your silly, goofy little face. I always tell people, I was like, look, Ry's gonna smile, and it's gonna be the goofiest smile ever, because you smile with your entire face. Like your smile is.
I feel like I look like that emoji where it's like if you were just to put like a colon and then like the letter D. Like I feel like that's what I look like when I smile.
That's exactly what your entire face smiles when you smile. It's not a bad thing. I'm just saying it's goofy.
I got a big mouth, and it works many ways.
That's right.
But thank you, Voga. It feels good to be back here with you.
Kevin's a very lucky man. Okay, so Ry, before we go, a couple of workshop stuff. I know our folks and our very patient patrons have noticed some changes in regards to our benefits. There are things that we shifted because, well, we learned a lot from last year. We couldn't do it all. We tried to do it all and couldn't do it all, and boy, did we not deliver. And I am so happy that we still have fucking patrons who are just like,
right.
They're still cool. I'll still support them. I'll still give them money.
Hey, we'll take the pocket change, y'all. It still supports.
No, but the pocket change also paid for. It's not pocket change at all, because that the money that y'all sent us to support the podcast paid for the commission that is our new logo. And I also want to shout out my friend and sister in Christ, not in Christ. Oh, she would kill me. my my friend Adrian, who is an incredible artist here in Los Angeles, who we commissioned for the logo, our new logo that you're looking at right now. Their their handle is the Witches and Devils Coven, or the Witches and Devils on Instagram. Adrian is a Satanist, and I just thought it would be just so incredible to have a Satanist commission our logo. I just thought that was so cunt. I just needed to toss that out there because Adrian is an incredible artist, and I was so happy to ask them to commission that artwork for us, and our patrons helped pay for that logo, and I'm so thankful that we were able to get that done. But yeah, Ry, do you want to go ahead and tell folks what the changes are with our Patreon tiers?
Yeah, I won't go ahead and talk about the things that we've taken off, but the new things that we now offer are blog posts. So you can keep an eye out for blog posts done by either myself or by Voga, or a collab together. And these are going to range from posts on theology, history, magic, spirituality, the occult, our own opinions on certain discourse, so on and so forth. So really kind of just like our own free flow posts on kind of whatever is both in line with the podcast, but also coming from like our own hearts at the moment. And the highest tier, Seraphim, which is $28 a month, will get as part of that tier, whenever Voga makes art, will automatically get that art shipped out to them as part of that tier. Whereas the other two tiers, or I'm sorry, just the other tier right below that, which is Cherubim, which is $10 a month, will get VIP pre-sale access to Voga's art. So before it's ever released to the general public for purchase, Cherubim tier members will be able to have first dibs on it, because any art Voga creates is going to be limited edition. And I have both of their artworks that I have received from them on my Marian mantle, and I can tell you, or altar, I mean, are stunning and beautiful. So if they're limited edition, you're going to want to get your hands on them while you can. And if you're a Cherubim tier, you'll get them early access to them. And if you're a Seraphim tier, you are guaranteed whatever print that Voga releases for that time. And the Seraphim tier will also get monthly tarot readings from me. And mind you, it's only $20 a month, so it's cheaper than if you were to book a whole one-on-one session with me. So
Definitely.
you'll get one question to ask each month that I will then deliver to you via a tarot reading. And so not only are you getting amazing artwork by Voga, but also one monthly question to ask me for a reading for a $20 value, which is a complete steal for the time and effort and energy that Voga and I put into our crafts, whether that's art or divination. And what else? Oh, and then Cherubim and Seraphim tiers both get bonus episodes that are Patreon exclusive. So what you're hearing right now, once this cuts out, there's actually going to be a little bit of a kiki and Q&A after the episodes are done with the public, that Vogue and I will be releasing as Patreon exclusive bonus episodes. So if you love what you hear on the red text and you want to hear more, and you want to hear our thoughts on any questions that are posed to us, whether that's practitioner and occult related or just questions to us as individual people, you will get to participate and listen to that if you are in either the Cherubim or Seraphim tiers on our Patreon. Am I forgetting anything?
No, I think that's everything. I just wanted to explain as to why we had to change a lot of things. Okay, just to let you guys know, we had to make it more doable for us. And I am so sorry that things are changing, but things change all the time, like our names. So, thank you. And I'm sorry, but also you're welcome. I don't know how to address this, but yes, I'm very excited for the bonus episodes that we're going to produce, because it's literally just another 30 minutes that Ryan and I get to talk to each other, which is like our favorite thing to do ever. So if y'all want to get that, it's literally going to be like a topic. I don't know, we could have a topic, but it doesn't necessarily have to be magical. It's just going to be extra content for y'all to just look at this stunning face. I worked really hard on this face, so like look at this face for
Oh, she does. Y'all should have seen her vanity in her hotel room in San Francisco. I was
just okay. Listen, the vanity was a bonus because I didn't even know there was a vanity in that hotel room, because the sink would have looked exactly like that. It would have been the same thing. I do what I do. to look like this, and I look stunning. So you're welcome.
Well, thank y'all for joining us for our second episode of the second season of The Red Text. I'm your co-host, Ry. You can find me on Instagram at The Mestizo Mystic or just on Twitter at Mestizo Mystic.
And my name is Voga, and I am Voga Illumiscente on Instagram.
And thank you for joining us for another Unholy Communion.
Okay, hello everyone. Welcome to the post show. I don't even know what we want to call it. We want to call it post show? Do we want to call it bonus episode? What do we want to call it?
Our first Patreon exclusive bonus episode.
Sure, let's say that. I didn't really have a topic to talk about in this one. I just wanted to kiki with you a little bit longer. I really loved the episode that we just had, and also, you know, I think it was a little bit of a nice little tease into what we're going to be producing this year in regards to season 2. But yeah, what do you want to talk about, Ray?
I didn't have anything in particular either, but what I'm really excited is to just dive into more angel work. I recently finished reading the book Angels and Archangels by Damien Eccles, who also wrote the book High Magick. Wonderful practitioner, extremely knowledgeable, obviously much more of an emphasis on ceremonial or high magic, but I still think there is a lot to learn and a lot to take and incorporate into a practice, whether your practice is high magic or quote unquote low magic or folk magic. Even if it's things you don't practice yourself, it's still cool to learn about it. But it was really cool to learn how he works with angels and archangels and their associations and the ways to invoke them using high magic. And I recently got this book by, you may know him on Instagram as Hoodoo Moses or Brother Moses, is what he goes by. Is he also has this book called the Codex Archangelicus, and it's all about devotional magic with Archangel Michael. And I'm just talking about angels and Michael right now because I feel like my practice is becoming more involved with angels, which originated with Raphael last year, and now I feel like Michael's popping up a bit for me as well, especially the more I've been going to mass and just opening up that pathway. So I'm just excited to explore that new opportunity that's opening in my practice, and to work more with angels outside of just Raphael, and to really explore them in a potentially high magic context, but also just in an occult, spiritual, magical way in general. Not that has to be the whole post show, but that's just going on with me.
No, I like that. That's fun. It's interesting because I was actually gifted, one of my best friends actually gifted me the Angel Tarot over Christmas.
Oh,
yeah, and it's really pretty. It's hard to read though, so I have to kind of spend more time using it because.
Who's it by? Because I know a couple different Angel Tarot decks.
I don't know. It's a white box with gold foil, and then the edges of the cards are gold.
I think I know what deck you're probably talking about, because I think I have that one, if it's the one I'm thinking of.
Yeah,
is it the one that each card has like the sigil of the angel? And okay, yeah, it's a sick deck.
It's so beautiful. It's really hard to read though. I haven't gotten used to it yet, because every card is associated with the tarot card. So like an angel is associated with the 6 of Cups. It's, that stuff.
Mm-hmm,
so but it's good because it has associations underneath about what that angel represents. So that's really, really nice. I don't know if it's going to ever be a main deck in a reading. Like I am such a Rider-Waite-Smith girl. Like I am so
same.
It's so easy to read. That's why I love it. And it's also really easy for my clients to read.
Absolutely.
So I think it's easy for me to help them understand what's happening in their reading when I use a Rider-Waite-Smith. But when I like deviate into other decks, it's more difficult. Like I love the Wild Unknown. I know all of the Instagram girlies love the Wild Unknown. It's a beautiful deck. The artwork is stunning, but it's very difficult for my clients to read it.
So vague.
Yeah, it's very vague. So I have to be very descriptive when I'm doing, and also I have a high turnover of clients when I'm ever doing events. So like being extremely descriptive when I'm reading cards is difficult because it takes more time. And it also takes a lot more energy. And like I said, I have a high turnover. But yeah, it's a stunning deck. So just because you brought up angels, currently I'm working on something that I told you last year. I'm working on condensing and consolidating my altars. I'm getting really sick of maintaining all of these fucking altars. I swear to God, I love my altars and they're all important, but I don't need to make so much space for places to pray. Because
Yes,
like
yes.
I'm starting to find my main altar. I don't even work at so much unless I'm doing actual craft. Like if I'm actually doing actual tactile physical witchcraft, I pray on my bed. I pray so much more on my bed than anywhere else. Like my bed has become an altar because like I grab my rosary, I pray on my bed, and then I go to sleep or I wake up. Whatever. I wake up, I grab my rosary and I pray, or I grab my rosary and I go to sleep, depending on what I'm doing that night. You know what I mean? So so I have to make time for shit. But yeah, like it's just something that I really wanted to go into this year is consolidating and simplifying, not to the extent of like getting rid of shit, but also getting rid of shit and like making less space to pray, because it's just making it's so overwhelming to one, upkeep, and two, I can do it all in one space.
And I think, like, on that note, I really appreciate you sharing that you'll just like pray in bed and that your altar is becoming your bed, because I feel guilty. Like, I'd rather pray the rosary in bed versus not praying it at all because I didn't have the strength or energy to go to my altar, And that's what's been the case for me lately, is even though I'm re-engaging a lot with my spiritual practice, I'm still finding that like I'll skip praying the rosary altogether just because I'm not doing it at my altar, or like I'll feel guilty if it's not on my altar. And I'm like, after you just sharing that, I'm realizing I think my spirits and ancestors care more that I'm just doing it
Doing it.
versus just doing it at the altar. And what I'm consistently learning and hearing from different sources and mentors is that we are the altar. All of our spirits, all of our ancestors are in us and with us and around us 24/7. Sure, an altar is a sacred space you create that you can invoke them and evoke them at, but at the end of the day, these spirits and even our ancestors surpass space and time, and we carry them within us and around us 24/7. So whether you're praying the rosary in bed or at your altar, the fact that you're just doing it is empowering in and of itself. And I think and the thing is, I keep my rosary near my bed too, but like I felt too guilty about doing that because sometimes I'd fall asleep. But if I don't do it on my altar tonight, I'd rather just pray my rosary in bed versus not at all.
Yeah, I I think just like the last like 5 or 6 years of um Instagram witchcraft really did a number on us. It's just like
Mm-hmm.
everyone is talking about altars for a long time, and just like everyone just wanted to have an listen. Altars are fucking cool. Altars are really fucking cool, and they're extremely useful, but they're only worth anything if you're using them, right? So it's like if you're
Right.
not using them, like it's just it doesn't make any sense. You know what I mean? It doesn't make any sense. And it also goes into this whole capitalistic thing, which I don't want to get into. um because sometimes that doesn't matter. Like things also are important, things matter, tools matter. um but also at the same time there are things that just don't matter, and
Mm-hmm.
it's subjective to practitioner to practitioner. And what I'm finding is that having an ancestor altar, having am I pointing the right way, having like this love altar right here, having this money altar, all of these things can be consolidated only because I know all of my spirits are working together for all of those same things, right?
Mm-hmm.
So it doesn't make
Mm-hmm.
sense for me to have different spaces for everything because I'm praying to the same fucking people, but I'm just
Yeah,
like changing places to do all these things. You know what I mean? It doesn't make any sense. So like
absolutely.
right behind this plant right here is my main altar. This is my main altar. And I specifically made it this way so that no one can ever see it. But yeah, this is my main altar, and this way I just want to consolidate, just scoop everything over, you know.
Totally. Absolutely. And like even in the context of like our great 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 ancestors who had some sort of magical spiritual practice, like more than likely didn't have altars and did what they could when they could where they could. So I feel like we definitely need to unpack and unwind this guilt we have of like only doing things at altars. I think that if we have the time and we have the energy and we can make the effort to, we should. But like I said, at the end of the day, in the context of praying the rosary, I think our spirits would prefer we just do it rather than not do it at all, whether that's at an altar or not. And I need to start incorporating that more because that's something I struggle with still.
Yeah, I'm I don't want to go out here and just like start soapboxing and say that altars are not important. Altars are important. They are. Like I don't
Oh
want
yeah.
anyone to twist what I'm saying is something else. Altars are important if they're important to you. But you have to also make sure you have that conversation with you. Is it really that important? Like,
Hmm.
are you really connected to this? Because remember, these things have spirits attached to them. Like, are
Yeah.
you connecting with the spirit of this altar? Have you spoken to the spirit of this altar in a long time? Are you not even working with this spirit of this altar anymore?
Hmm.
Have that conversation with you.
Is it,
Um,
at the end of the day, is it helping you or is it hindering you?
right, exactly. Like, is it just taking up space and it's something to look at? Like, is it even pretty anymore? Like, do you even care about it anymore? Because if not, then
Yeah.
maybe it's time to move away. I don't know why I can't detach away from a love and money altar. I don't know why I can't detach from, like, I part of the guilt that you were just talking about is me thinking I needed a love altar and a money altar. I was
Hmm.
like, I don't. I really, really fucking don't. You know.
I
Um.
think if that's something you're really hell bent on working on or manifesting, then sure, have one. But I mean, I think having a money or prosperity altar is great, but like I had one and I honestly don't take care of it that much. And again, that could be a hindrance not just to me as a spiritual practitioner, but to my life. You know, if you've created a space in which the spirit of money is there and you're not taking care of it, that's going to reflect in your actual life.
Yeah.
So it's better just to not have that altar at all rather than to have it and neglect it. Which now looking at that altar, I'm like, I should probably deconstruct that. But yeah, like do you look at that altar you've created and you see joy and feel joy, or do you feel like it's a burden? Because if it's starting to feel like a burden, either minimize it and strip it down to something manageable, or just get rid of it altogether.
Yeah. Like for example, I was talking about like my altars that I build when I go to events. Like that's a real altar. Like I don't put that up. Like I, there are people who come up to my booth and be like, "I really love your decoration." I was like, "Thank you." It's actually an altar. Like it's a real altar that I'm setting up at my event. Oh, let's speak. Hang on. Let's stop talking about altars. You did your first event.
I did do my first event.
Oh
Oh
my
my
god, I want to talk
gosh.
about this because I think the idea of being a professional witch is a topic that we should actually talk about at one point,
Absolutely.
because it's important. Because a lot of us are making. I mean, I'm not making a living off of being a professional witch. It's kind of like a side hustle, but there are people who do use their magic professionally and they charge people for it. So let's go into it. How I mean, you'd already told me, but I want you to tell everybody else. How did it go? How
Oh
was
my
it?
god, huge learning lesson, and it was fantastic. I went into it not knowing really how to prepare for it since it was my very first event, so that's where the learning lesson comes from. The main one being like I need to have some type of like physical wait list ready so that people can like mark when they're coming, because from the moment I sat down and the event started till the moment it ended, it was back to back to back to back to back. And I'm still working on developing healthy boundaries, and I say that because they're not very strong at this point. And so when someone was like, "Do you want to break?" I'm like, no, I can keep going, even though my like throat was getting so fucking dry from talking nonstop. And then one of my clients, like before they sat down for their reading, brought me a glass of water, which like was the sweetest thing because I was so in need of a drink. I was so parched because you're just when you're tarot reading at an event, if you don't have scheduled breaks for yourself, you genuinely are just reading back to
Back to
back to
back.
back. So I
Mhm.
was at that event for a good 3.5, 4 hours. So imagine talking nonstop for upwards of 4 hours. Your throat gets dry and starts to hurt, and you just it's a lot, and it's energetically a lot. Like I was
Yeah.
starting to feel worn out, and I had to like take like 30-second breaks in between every 2 to 3 clients so I could like kind of like cleanse myself, because I'm like, ooh, this is like, it takes a toll on you because you're consulting your spirits with their spirits and so on and so forth.
Yeah.
But it was a lot of fun. Voga gave me the great idea of using my iPad as a way for people to write down their name and phone number so then I can contact them when I'm ready for them to come, which is a fantastic idea because, again, I didn't have any type of wait list going on. Um, what else was a big lesson in learning?
Did you use a square?
No, so actually, the event coordinator just had me tally up everyone's names that
Oh,
I
that's right.
read and their amounts, and then I just sent in an invoice, which I felt like such a professional girly sending in an invoice and like getting paid. um, but yeah, it was a lot of fun, and I
They're
got
a
to read.
blast, right? Aren't they a
Yeah,
blast?
I got to read for my classmate, who's the one who referred me to his work, that then hired me as the reader for that event, and it was so fun just seeing people get so excited, and I got to be so many people's first time having a tarot reading, and it was
Yeah.
just an honor. And I remember specifically there was one reading I got to give where like I had chills going through my body as I was delivering one specific message during their reading, and like as I was getting the chills and giving them the message, their whole body started to get chills. And like
Oh,
it only happened with that one client, but like I knew in that moment like what I was saying was like meant to be heard by them. So that was a beautiful, beautiful experience. And I had some people like tear up here and there, and some people be like, wow, this really just gave me the perspective I needed. So it was just, it was so great because I was really concerned how it would be not just reading for people back to back, but having to condense so many readings into just a 10 to 15 minute time span. Because normally, when you book a reading with me individually, we go from anywhere from as little as 30 to 45 minutes to upwards of an hour. So
same. Yeah.
I was like, damn, how am I going to give like a really well detailed reading in 15 minutes without like rushing it? But hey, when spirit's speaking through you, everything happens how it's supposed to
Yeah.
happen.
It just flows, you know. Um uh
Uh,
the yeah, the things that I have learned from doing events, especially within the last year. Actually, it's coming up to my 1 year anniversary when I first worked my first event.
oh my
It was in
gosh.
February. Yeah, it was in February when I did my first event. It was the Vampire Ball, which is actually coming up, which I'm actually doing again.
Ah,
Um,
look how far you've come.
I know it's crazy. It's what's even. You want to talk about how far I've come? Let's talk about how far
Uh,
I've come. I've just booked a client for a full service, head to toe blessing, candle service, tarot reading, apartment cleanse in like a difference. And I don't even offer like apartment cleansing. Like they want me to come to their apartment to cleanse their apartment. um I don't even offer that service. And I there was it was a really big number. I calculated a whole bunch of stuff. I there was this huge number that I wanted to give them because it's going to be really expensive. And I told them, I was like, this
right.
isn't going to be cheap. Like my full service, when you go to my booking link on my Instagram, my full service is $200, and that's just from a spiritual cleansing and blessing and a tarot reading. That's $200. um that's because I have to meet up with you, and gas is very expensive, and I have to, it's basically a house call. um so it was a really huge number, and I told them this is not going to be cheap. So I sent them the number, and they were like, that's not a problem. It's almost $400 for this service for
Oh
two
my
hours
god.
So I'm just like, I've really come a long way. Because like I was offering like 20 like half-ass readings at the beginning of last year, and now I'm doing like
Mm-hmm.
this full fucking ritual at someone's house for a lot of money. It's a lot of fucking money for two
That's a
hours
lot of money.
Oh my god. And I was like, okay, cool. Like, okay, this is good, because I now my rate is my rate. Like this makes my rate feel like people would pay for it.
Yeah.
um but yeah, so the things that I've learned, magically, and especially within, it's really, the more you do it, it's incredible how much more of a better reader you become. Because let me tell you something, being a reader for people, like just like for your family members, you just having tarot cards and people just like, do a reading for me, whatever, like that's good. That's a really great way to practice and kind of dip your toes into it. But once you start doing these events, when you become a professional reader, and your turnover is so high, when it's literally what Ry said, back to back to back for hours, it really teaches you how great one of a good reader you are. It's a totally different monster. Your stamina is wild. The way that you can shift from one client to another, because you have to, like I have to literally cleanse the entire table, cleanse my cards, and also close whatever session we had before, tell the spirits to thank you for being here, please go away now because another client's coming, and then invite another spiritual court to the table. It's a lot of work. So the sense of urgency when it comes to like doing events like that, it teaches you a lot. It teaches you a lot on how to be a really good reader, how to be a really good psychic. It's not easy. It's not everyone can do it. Not everyone can be in that kind of a situation or that kind of environment and read. And mind you, a lot of these environments, like I was telling you, a lot of these environments are like bars and clubs. It's not easy to be a reader in those kind. There's a lot of stimulus. There's a lot of other people's spirits kind of roaming around. A lot of energies roaming around. So it's not an easy thing to do. You're going to learn a lot. Are you planning on doing it more?
Not anytime in the near future. At least I have nothing planned because this was just like a word of mouth thing where my classmate offered me to talk to his boss to let me do it at their school event, and so that's how it happened. But I'm not like actively advertising myself, especially while I'm in school. I just simply don't have the time and energy to really be doing that. If it was like something during the summer or during my next winter break, then totally. But I'm not like actively going around SF seeking out events or anything like that. Especially because like this event was, thankfully they provided the table for me and the chairs, whereas like I don't really have my own to bring to any future events, nor do I have any storage in the small house that I live in. So that's the only reason why. But I definitely would love to do more in the future and really get my name out there more. But I also humbly admit that there's so much more for me to learn. Like there's certain things I don't read for, one because of ethics, but two because I haven't done enough of it, because I don't feel knowledgeable enough. Like for instance, like I don't do time-based predictions. I know it's doable with tarot, but I don't because I haven't experimented with that enough yet. Or like when some people ask me like what kind of job they might have, like I haven't researched the cards enough to know like what I can be like, oh, here's the qualities of the next job you'll have, but I've never been able to pull a card and be like, you're going to be a carpenter, so
Right.
there's still so much more for me to learn before I want to put myself like super out there, just to humble myself. Not to say I'm not good, because I am, because this event went great.
Oh, no. Ry is fucking phenomenal. Fucking phenomenal. Trust me, those typed up interpretations really read me to fucking filth. That was mean. That was mean. It was mean. But yeah, no, absolutely incredible. I have heard that I'm very good. I still haven't heard anyone say that I didn't hit the nail on the head. So I don't know. I don't know. I mean, Franny can attest to my readings. Franny says I'm pretty good. So, but also Franny's a bitch, so I'm pretty sure that she could be a little bit more enthusiastic. But yeah, I would love to have a sit down with you one day where you read cards for me. Like when next time we're in person, I would love to get a reading from you.
Oh hell yeah.
Oh, I think we should read each other. I think that'd be fun.
That would be fun.
Yeah, god damn it. Events are so much fucking fun. I have one coming up next week. I'm so excited. And god, they're so lucrative. Holy shit. People are spending their money for shit like this. Especially when there's an open bar or there's a bar. Ooh, people are really loose with their money there. Like, give me a rating. And that's the reason why I had to invest in you remember those plastic cards I gave you? Those gold cards, those foiled cards. The reason why I bought those cards were not because they were beautiful. I mean, they are beautiful, but the reason why I bought those is because they're plastic. They're waterproof. And because the first event that I did, the last client that I had spilled their drink on my table all over my cards. So it like almost ruined my card. So I had to like invest in plastic cards. Yeah, I had to invest in plastic cards. The
very last client I had at this event was wasted. She was coherent enough for it. She was coherent enough to get a reading, but she was like at one point she was like, she just stopped talking, just slumped over, and like some customers had to like come collect her, and I was just kind of sitting there like, I don't know what to do. I'm just here to read cards.
How do you? Okay, but here's the thing. Ethics wise, how do you feel about reading for someone who's blown out of their fucking minds? Like ethically, because you can say whatever the fuck you want.
That's true.
They'll probably believe you.
I still deliver like whatever the cards are saying. Like I'm not gonna manipulatively tell them whatever I could or want to just because they're wasted. But I feel like just because the person's wasted doesn't mean like their spirits are, and so what they need to hear will still come through. But them as like a physical being just may not be able to fully comprehend or integrate it because of that like intoxicated state they're in. Because if they're paying money, I mean, so the way this worked is that the event was paying for all these readings, so anyone who wanted a reading could sit down with me and basically get a reading for free because the event was paying me to give out these readings. Whereas if it was like each person coming up to me was then going to pay me, I would be a little bit iffy about taking the money if they're completely blasted, because I'm like, well, what are you going to leave this with? Like, are you even going to remember anything I'm telling you after the words? But also me wanting money, I'm like, well, I mean, I'm still giving you a good reading. It's up to you whether or not you remember, So
that's the part that gets me though. It's like, I always feel uncomfortable. I was like, are you going to remember what I said? You know, it's like, and you're giving me like a lot of money for telling you something that you're probably not going to remember. I don't know. That was like a passing thought I had once when I was at a bar and I was reading for somebody. I was like, this girl was fucking out of her mind blasted, and her boyfriend was not helping at all. And I was just like, are you going to remember what I said? Anyways, that was just something that I just was thinking about. But I think I think my drunk clients were always my favorites because they're so funny. There's like,
Yeah.
I know exactly what you're talking about. Oh my god, that's wild! How did you know that?
This client I had at one point reached across the table and grabbed my hand, and she's like, tell me about you. I'm like, honey, I'm here to tell you about you.
Right. Before we go, because we're about to hit our half-hour mark, there are going to be experiences where you have kind of like clients that are they're like 3 degrees off. And it's, especially if they're like readers also, I'm always very cautious about folks who say that they're also readers, because I'm just like, okay, like, where is this going to go? You know? Because I feel like there's like a different level of scrutiny when, like, there's a different level of scrutiny that I have when I sit with a reader that I don't know, like, not like a friend. If I just like wanted, if someone's offering tarot and I ask for a reading, like, there is a level. It's like, let's see what this person is really all about, right? Because like, if you claim to be the real deal, hello, I'm pointing at myself. If you claim to be the real deal, like, I want to make sure that the person I'm paying is also the real deal, right? So I kind of like have like a little thing kind of going on. Anyways,
Yeah.
there was
Yeah.
the first event that I told you about this person. I'm not going to divulge who this person is. There are going to be clients where they're just kind of like a little off, there's something kind of off about them, because this person, after I did this full, very in-depth, very long reading, by the way, takes a crystal out of their pocket, like a quartz crystal out of their pocket, and like,
Oh my god, I forgot who you were talking about for a second.
right,
That just jogged my memory.
because I remember I told you like the next week, I was like, oh bitch, because this person, we know this person through something, anyways, that's neither here nor there. Anyways, there's a little bit of drama. Anyways, so this person like takes this crystal and like hovers it in their palm, like their crystal was like cupped in their palm like this, and started hovering it over the cards, and then dropped it over a card and said, that's the card that I relate to most. I was like, you dropped it on that card, what are you talking? And it's not like they were like this, like, it was right over the fucking, like, you knew what you were doing. Like, shut up. Like, shut the fuck up. And also, we don't like this person, so I'm just like in my head, I'm just like, shut the fuck up. Like, who are you trying to, like, what are you trying to do? Like, who are you trying to peacock for? I don't give a shit about you. You know what I mean?
Yeah, and mind you, this isn't petty drama. This person tried to do workings on me and several other of my friends, so just this drama is warranted.
No. This is real. This is real shit. Like, this is real tea. And like, when people do shit like that, I'm just like, yo, like, you're paying for my service. Let me do my job. You know, let me just do what you're paying me to do. Like, don't try to hold dominion over my table. First of all, this is my table. Like, this is not, you don't have any dominion over what's going on here. Like, let me do my job, right? So, anyways, that was a little bit of a cunty kind of conversation.
Yeah. But on a side note, just so all you patrons know, because this is Patreon exclusive, in the future there will also be Q&A portions of this post-show bonus episode that are posted. It's just we did not have this episode as our first bonus episode, but in between our episodes, we will be asking for you and general Instagram members to submit questions that will be answered on our Patreon exclusive bonus episodes. So just know, even if y'all don't answer or send us questions, we will be answering any questions submitted to us that you will then get private exclusive access to our answers and thoughts on.
Yeah, please send those questions. You can send them on Patreon. You can send them in the you can just straight up message us on Patreon, and we can write them down and we'll put them in the next show.
But thank you for your support of the podcast and supporting our Patreon, as we just mentioned in the episode that preceded this post-show bonus exclusive Patreon exclusive. Okay, there's too many words. This bonus episode, all y'all's money from Patreon went to getting us our new logo. So your money is going to good use, and thank you so much.
I would also love to hear what people think of the new logo, because I think it's amazing.
I can't wait to see it.
You have seen it.
I mean digitized and like put out
Oh,
there,
like finished.
distributed.
Yeah, because
Yes.
I'm still working on the promos right now as we speak. But yes, I know. Anyways, thanks guys. I really, really appreciate you being here, and I cannot wait for the next one.
And neither can I. Toodles y'all till the next one.